Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Johnson Institute for Responsible Leadership Exemplary Leader Awards. I'm Carissa Slaughterback, and I serve as the Dean of the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Pittsburgh. And we're so fortunate to be home of the Johnson Institute. At GSPIA, we have a mission to prepare students to make significant contributions to society through leadership in public service in all sectors. The Johnson Institute for Responsible Leadership, through programming, through teaching, and through research, is absolutely integral to our efforts to fulfill this mission. Today, we have the tremendous opportunity to honor two extraordinary leaders with the Johnson Institute's Exemplary Leader Award. Giselle, Barreto, Fetterman, and Leah, Lizarondo, through their individual work and, importantly, their collaboration informing 412 Food Rescue, have made invaluable contributions to our Pittsburgh region and beyond. Giselle and Leia, I want to personally congratulate you for this award and all that you do to advance the public good. In addition to celebrating our winners today, we all have an opportunity to learn from them. We frequently hear that you can't be what you can't see, and that's especially true with leadership. I'm inspired by the leadership that you have shown, and especially your commitment to service. And for many of our students, leadership roles and a vision of what it means to be a leader might seem decades away or even unattainable. And I think Giselle and Leia, you show us that that is not true. Leia has a master's degree in public policy, a degree similar to that which many of our students are pursuing, though we won't hold it against her that she got it from CMU. Both women embody an entrepreneurial spirit. They've seen a need in our community and they've stepped up and stepped in order to solve it. Giselle has done so not only through 412 Food Rescue, but through multiple area nonprofits, including Free Store 15104 and For Good TGH. They show us that we don't have to wait for change to happen, that we can be that change. I can't think of a more powerful message for our students and for all of us to take away from today's event. Leia, Giselle, congrats again. I know you're only getting started and I can't wait to see what comes next. Thank you and congrats again.
Thank you so much, Carissa, and welcome everyone. My name is Julia Santucci, and I am the director of the Johnson Institute for Responsible Leadership. Before we get started today, I just wanted to offer a few remarks at the beginning. And first, a special word of welcome to the members of the Johnson family who are with us today. Without your support, we wouldn't be here, and we're tremendously grateful. I'm also grateful for our supporters in the Hispanic Latino Professional Association and the University of Pittsburgh's Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And finally, I am deeply grateful to the support that we receive from our staff and students at the Johnson Institute. Our administrator, Doreen Hernandez, has worked tirelessly to ensure that today's event was a success. And our student workers and interns, Taylor Brocher, Chloe Harvey, Sarah Downing, and Mingdi Zhu, have really just been integral every step of the way. So thank you so much, Doreen, Chloe, Taylor, Sarah, and Mingdi. So the purpose of awards like this is really twofold. First, it's an opportunity to celebrate extraordinary leaders. And second, it's an opportunity for all of us to learn from their example, as Carissa mentioned. For the next several minutes, I'm going to celebrate these tremendous leaders, these two remarkable women, Giselle Barreto Fetterman and Leah Lizarondo. And then we'll have an opportunity to hear from both of them, to hear in their own words more about what leadership means to them and about their leadership journeys. So this is the 12th time that the Johnson Institute has presented the Exemplary Leader Award. And you saw some of the prestigious recipients in the slideshow at the beginning of this webinar. They come from all sectors and all fields, but they share one commonality. We consider all of them to be true leaders of character. Research conducted by the Institute and by my predecessor, Dr. Kevin Kearns, tells us that leaders of character tend to share 6 common characteristics. First, self-knowledge. They're reflective of their strengths, their weaknesses, and they consider leadership to be a lifelong learning experience. Second, systemic and external organization. They're able to analyze trends that are happening outside of their organization and adapt to ensure that their organization's mission continues despite those trends, or perhaps that it flourishes because of them. Integrity. Leaders of character make ethical decisions and are committed to ethical behavior. Stewardship. They work to ensure that their organizations are left better than they were at the start of their tenure, and they're committed to constant, continuous capacity building. Accountability. They take personal responsibility for decisions, and they hold themselves and others to high standards of performance. And finally, empathy. Effective leaders build trust by paying attention to the needs of others and being attentive to those needs. They engage in active listening. All of our Exemplary Leader Award recipients embody these characteristics in everything they do. And of course, we examined these traits when selecting this year's recipients. But this year, it felt different, and I'm sure you all know what I mean. It just somehow seems more important. We're facing challenges like we've never faced before. And so when I sat down with Doreen and our students to consider who we wanted to select this year, we all agreed that it had to be somebody that was working in a truly transformative way to address the acute needs that we see, maybe not because of the pandemic, but that the pandemic has made all the more apparent to us. And so with those criteria in mind, Taylor led our students in going out to create a short list of 18 individuals that embodied that trait, those traits. And we looked across the list, and frankly, the choice was obvious. Leia and Giselle just stood out far above the others. It was a very easy choice. Our vote was unanimous, and we are so happy and proud to present this award to the both of you. So let me just tell you a little bit about each of our recipients, and I'll start with Giselle. Giselle Barreto Fetterman immigrated to the United States as a child in the 1990s with her family, fleeing violence in her native Brazil. For many years, she lived as an undocumented immigrant in New York City. Throughout her adult life, she spent the entire time helping others in one way or another, first in the New York and New Jersey area, and then later here in Western Pennsylvania. She told a CNN interviewer that she first came to learn about Braddock, PA, when she read that steel produced there had been used in the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. So all of us who call Pennsylvania home should consider ourselves very fortunate that she met and married Braddock's mayor, John Fetterman, now our lieutenant governor here in Pennsylvania, because that meant that she stayed here. And we're all really, really lucky to have Giselle active in our community. In 2012, she founded Free Store 15104 in an old shipping container in Braddock. And Free Store redistributes household items, clothing, and food to those in need. And not only does this provide for people who need that type of support, but it also encourages recycling and reuse of goods that would otherwise go to waste. Free Store became the inspiration for 412 Food Rescue, the nonprofit that Giselle went on to found with Leia in 2015. Giselle's work in our community has not stopped there. She also founded For Good PGH, which is an organization that develops and implements initiatives to promote diversity and inclusion and create positive experiences for underserved populations in our region and beyond. This includes a women's business incubator for minority women entrepreneurs, and also producing Barbie-sized hijabs that promote feelings of inclusion for Muslim girls. Giselle espouses all of the characteristics that I spoke about earlier that we look for in a leader of character. But I think above all else, she embodies empathy and kindness. She listens to people, she stays connected with them, she's attentive to their needs, and she actively engages to help them. She does all of this despite now serving as the Second Lady of Pennsylvania. She hasn't lost touch with the people she serves, and we're really proud that she's accepted this award. Leah Lizarondo was born and raised in the Philippines. She immigrated to the United States as a young adult, and as Carissa mentioned, received her Master's of Public Policy and Technology from Carnegie Mellon University. Leah is a food enthusiast. While working in New York City, she attended cooking school just for fun. She said in a profile that she did for Vital Voices, an organization that recognized her with the 2019 We Empower Award and the 2020 Global Leadership Award, that she never believed that she could marry her love of food with her career trajectory. That is until she read a National Resources Defense Council report, which said that we waste nearly half of our food supply. Leah partnered with Giselle to co-found 412 Food Rescue to try to address that challenge. The organization builds on the Free Store's concept of redistributing goods that would otherwise go to waste to those in need. For 412 Food Rescue, Leah leveraged her technology background to develop an app that mobilizes tens of thousands of volunteers who rescue food that's about to go to waste and deliver it to people in need. That app, Food Rescue Hero, is now used in 12 cities across the United States and Canada and growing every day. It is responsible for rescuing over 40 million pounds of food. Like Giselle, Leah exemplifies all of the characteristics that we look for in our exemplary leaders, but she especially stands out as a systemic and external thinker. She quickly diagnosed the challenge of food waste as one of logistics, and she developed the Food Rescue Hero app to help solve that challenge. When the pandemic hit, food insecurity in America hit levels that we probably haven't seen since the Great Depression. Under Leia's leadership, 412 Food Rescue quickly adapted to the new challenges. They partnered with the US Department of Agriculture to distribute food directly to families in need, and also continued their ongoing food rescue programs, again, adapting to the new needs in the pandemic. Giselle and Leah, we applaud your accomplishments as both individuals and as collaborators. For your passion, your commitment to solving deep-seated problems in our community, and your dedication to serving people in need, I am proud to present you with the Johnson Institute for Responsible Leadership Exemplary Leader Award. I hope you'll all join me in congratulating these two remarkable women. Now, I'd like to invite you each to make some brief remarks, beginning with you, Giselle.
Thank you so much. I'm emotional. I'm carrying this award, which is very heavy. I'm getting a workout. But to share a history with some leaders that I've admired who have been personal heroes of mine really means so much to me. I came to this country as a young immigrant, undocumented child who really never had the ability to dream big or really see a bigger picture. I think poverty and trauma really kills your long-term vision. So for me, it was about survival. When I moved here, my family dumpster dived, and I saw firsthand the waste. Coming from a third world country into a country of excess was shocking to me. And I believe that we have to walk through life in awe, not in judgment, but in awe of what we see and take note of that, and then put ourselves in a situation to change that. So I collected those stories and those experiences, and that's how the Free Store was born. It was born from my dumpster diving days. It was born from purchasing my free furniture from the curb. And it's taking those experiences and trying to marry a problem to a solution. When I was a young child, my apartment had no furniture, and I came across a curb full of furniture in New York, and that solved my problem. But I knew that I wasn't alone in having these problems. So I made the commitment to take a pain and not allow it to transform you so that you don't transmit it, but take that pain and then transmit it into something beautiful, into a response that can then change things going forward. And Food Rescue was born at the Free Store. The Free Store was born to meet those needs, and it both have only grown from there. The Free Store is now all over the state and growing and creating new partnerships. But at the root of it is that it's helping families change that cycle. It's one less family that will suffer. It's one less family that will be food insecure. It's helping to break those cycles for those families for generations to come. And that's what I think we both hope to do long term. So really, I'm just beyond humbled and emotional and grateful to be here. It's great to see my friend Leia. We don't see each other enough anymore during this past year, but just honored to be here with all of you. And thank you. Through For Good, we've looked at situations where we can change the direction for women. We know women will save the world. If you invest in women, you'll make the world better. All my heroes are women, I see them all on this meeting. And through my partnership with Kristen Michaels, who has a history with Pitt, we started to work to change that. We believe in growing the wealth from within the community. So we partnered with these incredible local women with amazing talent to help them grow these businesses. Again, changing a cycle that will impact that family generations to come. And just continuing walking in awe and looking at situations and thinking how we can make them a little bit better for the next person. So thank you for this weight and this honor. And I'm just so grateful to be here with you.
Thank you, Giselle. Leah?
So I'm so glad Giselle started, because as you saw, there was an interruption there. First of all, I would love to thank, just always, paying homage to Giselle and the inspiration that she continues to provide the community. When that National Resources Defense Council report came out in 2012, the ideas started to brew. But really, and then, you see little hints of, waste happening from, some friends in the restaurant industry, looking behind grocery stores, seeing what's out there. But really, when I saw Free Store and what Giselle was actually doing, so it was a, long time of just thinking about it. And then, you see her just doing something. And that really was the point where, okay, well then we should just do this, and it's that kind of inspiration that I think, among many other things that Giselle has in the community. And 412 is forever, grateful for, lending that inspiration, but also her influence that really truly helped launch it in the community. I don't have, much other things to add except that, I think when we look at problems, one of the things that Giselle and I share too, which I absolutely value, is that we are both immigrants and we come from countries where there is, poverty is endemic. And when I came here as an adult, I had this idealized notion of what this country is about. And I think it was, I've always shared the story that it was a slow realization that, while in the Philippines, you see poverty everywhere. In the United States, it's not quite different, but it's somewhat hidden. And on the other side of that, there is so much excess. And that moral disconnect was what really was uncomfortable. And, hearing Giselle's story and looking at the other Johnson Institute awardees, Kathleen Hauer, doing, what she's doing, what she did, what she launched with Global Links, taking our country's medical surplus and, which would have gone to landfill and making sure that developing countries have it. Samir Lakhani, soap from hotel rooms. I have traveled so much in these last, not last year, but in the year leading up to that, as Food Rescue Hero expands. And his work with just these tiny pieces of soap that has made so much difference in terms of public health in developing countries. It's these opportunities that we all see every day, and we all think about it, when we travel and we open that piece of soap. I know every one of us has thought, like, well, I'm just going to leave this piece of soap here, that I've used 2 times. But what he's done is he's actually taken that thought and said, well, you know what? I'm going to actually collect all of this and then transform it into soap that children don't even have. So it's those kinds of catalytic actions, that those moments of, I've thought about it so much that I'm actually going to do something about it. And then Jim Withers, with 412 Food Rescue Hero, it's all about creating a movement. And Jim has created a movement that didn't exist. It was taking all of these doctors and making sure that they serve people where they are, which is in the streets. And it's a global movement. And from speaking with him, I know he didn't intend for it to be that way. He just wanted to first solve a problem here. And then, of course, that has inspired a movement everywhere. And that is what Food Rescue Hero is all about. How do we enable this movement everywhere across the world, which is what Samir is also doing. So, and what Global Links is now doing as well. So I love all of the similarities in who the Johnson Institute has awarded. And it's these individuals that see what seems to be a small problem, and small enough to be maybe it's okay to let it stew for a while, but then at some point these awardees said, no, I'm just going to do something about it. And the reaction, which is the same with 412 and Food Rescue Hero, has been, oh, I've thought of that. I'm so glad you're doing it. So everyone has thought of this. And I think that, what Giselle has inspired in me has been moving from thought to action. And I'm grateful for that. And everyone in this institute who's recognized the work of, two immigrants who had dreams, and just the opportunity to be able to do something about it, but also an homage to all of the people who have stepped up to actually scale this movement. So thank you so much. So much appreciation.
Can I just add one thing, if it's okay? So I just want to share, so 412 Food Rescue was born, we were both essentially on maternity leave. And there's all these photos of us having meetings where we're actually playing Barbies with Grace, with like 2 babies in our laps. And I just wanted to add that, because I think, women especially can feel like you are in this world if you're raising children, if you're home, but it's always working. And, our meetings were always very chaotic. There was always a child nursing, a child on a table, a child on the floor, a child licking a wall. But you just do it. So I just wanted to add that, because I have a lot of funny memories from the early days.
Yeah, we always joke we have 6 children between us, so it's a lot.
Which makes your accomplishments all the more impressive. That's just incredible. And I mean, thank you so much to both of you for sharing those thoughts. I think Leah, your remarks really demonstrate what I mean about systemic thinking, that you saw even the connections between all of our awardees and the ways that many of you are engaging in the community. Also, I think one of the things that really stood out to all of us about the 2 of you is your immigrant past, and how you've used those influences and used those experiences that you had as immigrants to make our community better and stronger. And Leah, you're exactly right. Poverty in the United States does exist, but it is not as in your face as it is in many parts of the world. And often that allows us to forget about it. And so I really, really applaud both of you for not allowing us to forget about it, and for keeping it at the front of people's minds, and, and really inspiring others through your network of volunteers to help contribute to eradicating this challenge. So we are going to have a Q&A session. Audience members, if you would like to ask a question, if you could please use the Q&A feature at the bottom and not the chat, because our students are going to be moderating and I don't want them to have to look at both. So please use the Q&A. The chat is great if you want to continue with your congratulations and words of support, but for questions, please type them in the Q&A. And as the audience starts to think about questions, I will take host privilege and ask the first one. And I'm going to pose it to both of you. And I think one of the things that really stood out to us about the 2 of you is that collaboration between you. And you both come to this partnership with different strengths, different experiences, but you work together to forge this incredible organization. And I think that's a wonderful message to our students and to all of us. Sometimes we think about leadership as a solo enterprise, as something that one person goes out and does. But of course, that's not true. That's not how the Johnson Institute thinks about leadership. And your partnership is really exemplary of the ways in which collaboration, and particularly collaboration between women, can be inspiring. And so I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit about how you came to know each other, how you met, and how that collaboration really got off the ground. And whoever wants to start.
Do you want to go?
I'll start. So we met. I was a food writer for Pittsburgh Magazine, and I was doing a series of cooking videos. And so I contacted Giselle and I said, do you want to do a cooking video and talk about Brazil and, what your, just talk a little bit about your background. And that's how it all started for me. So it's, and we cooked at her house, and really, I think the secret is that the dish didn't have enough time to cook, but we had to film it. So we were tasting it. I think the kale was raw, but we had to because there wasn't enough time.
Yeah, I was like, this is
it's so good. It's so raw, but it's so that's my first memory of that.
Yes. Yeah. I think the first contact was the New York Times did that breastfeeding photo. I think that's when you reached out, and that's when we did the cooking show, right? It was like a portrait, and I was nursing my son. And
correct. Yes.
Right,
and I was proud of her because I'm also, I'm a long-term nurser. And so I was really proud of her for kind of amplifying and normalizing that.
Yeah. And I think, there's great balance in that we are different in how we work. And I think that's what you need. Like, I'm so ADHD and I have a million ideas and I'm all over the place. And Leia will sit down and figure out how to make this actually happen. So it's important to have partnerships that really differ in how you work and how you experience things. That's how I think solutions can happen, when you have these different skill sets combined.
And maybe along that point, and I'm going to ask one more question, and then Taylor, I will turn it over to you. But, Leia, you mentioned Giselle just does it. She just starts an organization, and she has multiple times, and she makes it look easy. But of course, it's not easy. And so I was wondering if perhaps both of you could speak a little bit to when you go to launch a new organization, you're acting as social entrepreneurs. What are the skills that you most rely on, or what are the skills that you wish you had had when you started 412 Food Rescue or any of your other organizations?
I think for me, I think I've had ideas always, but you wait for the time to be perfect. You wait to have all these ducks in a row, and it's accepting that it's never going to be perfect, right? You just jump in and you learn along the way, and it's completely okay to learn as you go. If we wait for things to be perfect, they'll never be. So I think accepting that, I maybe would have started things earlier if I had believed more in myself. And also, I don't know about Leia, but I know I carry some imposter syndrome where at times, I'm this young undocumented kid from Rio who who do I think I am? So I think so much of it is working through things in your head and seeing things come to life, help more grow. For me, that's been my experience.
Yeah, so I think Giselle is correct. There's never a right time. It's kind of like having kids, you can't wait for the perfect moment. There's never a perfect moment. And it's for me, I think that I was lucky to have Giselle to start 412 Food Rescue, but then what the ensuing challenge was really the thought of scale, which was my personal just challenge to myself is, okay, this is great. Now, how do we bring it everywhere? And that was extremely difficult. And I think, to further, the thought of collaboration, this was an enormous team effort. So it's and collaboration with many, many individuals. And I think when we talk about leadership, for me, it's all about how do you now form, like I always talk to my team about, the Avengers, because I'm such a nerd about that. It's like, I'm not one of the superheroes. I am really like, of course I forget what his name is, the guy that brings them all together, and and our team has been such an amazing team, and all of the collaborators that have made this what it is today. It's all about those people, and it just simply can't happen without it. No leader acts alone. And I think one of the things that Julia said, it's really one of the big traits of a leader, which I have learned, and I still have a little bit of a hard time calling myself a leader. I feel like I am, what I'm good at is bringing people together, and that's made all the difference.
Thank you both. Carissa, I guess maybe I'll just turn to you to allow you to ask a question first, and then Taylor will move to the audience Q&A.
Great. Thanks, Julia. Thank you so much. This is amazing. I've just been like jotting down all of the amazing quotes and things that I feel like I should just put on my wall for inspiration when things get hard. So one of the things I'm thinking about, I love your focus on collaboration, and I know that amazing leadership requires amazing teams who are all working together. One of the things that I'm curious about are, what are the ways that you work to sort of keep up the energy and ensure that this work is sustainable over the long term? Leia, you talked about scale, and that's a big piece of it, is sort of that ability to grow. But how do you keep up the momentum from an organizational sense, or interpersonal, or just the energy that it takes to keep this going?
So that's a really good question. And, I think something that, entrepreneurs ask all the time, there is, there's no one, giving me employee of the month, so it's no one, exactly like telling me what my next step is. But what I've, done, and what I've realized, to be able to survive and to be able to actually achieve the things that we envision, is to have the support of other people who have done it before us. So Jim Withers, great, always a mentor and always an inspiration, always looking to him, always sending him messages when I have questions. David Shapira, who grew Giant Eagle, has been an amazing mentor to me. And I always say, David, if I ever write about this, I'm going to talk about the times you made me cry. And in a positive way, because he pushes me and makes me think of things that are uncomfortable. And, and once you deal with this discomfort of, pushing you beyond what you think you're capable of, then you understand why you were pushed. And I mean, there's so many other people, it's really hard to kind of name, and I really have to start making a list. But really looking to others who have gone before us and learning from them has been, the one thing that has, brought us where we are today.
Yeah, and I'll add, I experienced food insecurity growing up. We were food insecure, so I remember what that feels like. I don't want one more person to experience that. And through the Free Store, we have this incredible team of all volunteers for the last 9 years. They show up every week, 3 days a week, with just giving them all their love and their heart, and they believe in this work. And I will always show up for them, and with Forward too. I mean, we had Jennifer England, who was our first hire, just an incredible contributor to the growth, to the story. I'm so inspired by her, and so many that allow us to do this work. For someone to allow you into this very personal space in their life, where they're struggling, where they're hungry, where they're in need, to share that vulnerability, that's such an immense honor to be allowed into that space. So I will never get tired of doing this work.
Go ahead, Taylor. Would you and Sarah maybe like to, or I'm sorry, would you and Chloe like to share some questions from the audience?
Yeah, of course. Thank you both, Giselle and Leia. We've had some wonderful questions in the chat, so I'll kick us off with the first one. Both of you have kind of touched on this already, but a few audience members have asked, how do you put yourself out there or continue to do so when you experience setbacks? And where does this drive come from? And either of you can go ahead and address
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I always tell my team, one of the things that, you know, we have to accept is failure, and we cannot be scared of failure. That's where innovation comes from. And I say this absolutely sincerely to my team, and they will 100% back me on this, is that, you know, I give you permission to do something and then ask for permission later. You know, it's your call. And when you fail, at least you tried. And I think, and the key thing is we learned from that failure. And that's been what, you know, 412 and Food Rescue Hero has been throughout these 6 years. We have failed so many times. But it's also birthed, you know, really major new ideas, which, you know, this team has run with. And yeah, so that's how we keep going with the setbacks. The setbacks are your push forward, and we welcome them.
Yeah, I was raised by two really strong women, my mom and my grandmother, who, you know, never took anything, but always told me that you can restart at any time. You know, my mom came to this country as a single mom, started an entire new life, left a PhD and a career to work as a domestic worker. So failure was never a fear. It's just like you start over at any time. You wake up, it's a new day to start over. And that includes where you failed the day before, tomorrow's a new day to try and get it right. There's no limit on how many times you can try to get it right. You just keep going until you do.
Thank you both. We have some questions in the chat now about growth to other cities with the 412 Food Rescue Program. Are there things run from here, or do you authorize others to replicate the program?
Yeah, so Food Rescue Hero is the platform that runs 412 Food Rescue. And, you know, this is one of the kind of much pain has been caused. It's technology that is, you know, now being used in 12 cities, and we license these to other nonprofits. And, you know, there's actually, you know, hundreds of food rescues all over the world. And it's, you know, what they don't have is the technology that allows them to scale. So they remain, you know, they do their mission, they can do it up to a certain point. And what we essentially would love to do is to share it with these hundreds of food rescues all over the world, and allow them to scale as 412 scaled here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I'll add, with the free store, as we grow, we are all over the country. We even have one in Brazil, in my city. It's a someone from that community reaching out and saying, I love the store, I think this can work in my community. It's never entering a space saying that we have the solutions. It's someone on the ground who has experience, who thinks that could work for their community. So we have a blueprint together. We meet, we help them map it out. But again, Free Store is all volunteers, so it's helping them build a team that will allow them to sustain their work. We're actually working within a reservation right now as well. And that's the first time we've done that work, and it's learning so much more. It's a whole new experience doing that work in a place like we are now.
Thank you. So now, kind of in a similar light, we have a few questions in the Q&A about, as your organizations have expanded, Mike asks, it leads to a lot more work and a lot more hands. And so then how do you ask for help and enlist others to the cause? And then likewise, how can students get involved here locally in Pittsburgh?
Well, I'll say, having birthed this in Pittsburgh, I think, Pittsburgh is the greatest city in the world. We have the most amazing people here. I think if we started somewhere else, it would have been harder. But to have the support that we've received here in Pittsburgh has made all the difference. And I'll let Leah take it for the next step.
Yeah, so I think it's all about creating, it's an organization, you know, just like anything else. And I mean, my background has never been in the nonprofit world. So for me, it's building the organization itself has been part of the joy. And, you know, I always say also that I'm always talent scouting, always looking around for people I would want to work with and bring to the team, constantly talent scouting. And I am so proud to say that I think 95% of our staff, which has grown to about 30 now, were volunteers first. So, I mean, and the most successful people at, you know, our organization has been the people who have believed in it first as an individual, and then have wanted to bring their talent into the organization. So, you know, we don't use that as a criteria for when we're hiring, but, you know, inside I'm always thinking, you know, do you have experience with this? Did you do at least one rescue? Is this something more to you than a job? And truly, you know, 95%, like I say, have been volunteers first. And that's quite an astounding thing to think about.
And Chloe, before you jump in with the next question, maybe just to clarify for people in the audience who are interested in volunteering, they can sign up on the website. Is that right, Leia?
No, they can download the app.
Okay, there we go.
Go to Food Rescue here in Pittsburgh. And if there's people in other cities, just search Food Rescue Hero and you'll see what app is available to you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you both. How would you respond to or deal with microaggressions or macroaggressions within your professional spaces?
So I'm going to start because I've recently, you know, with what did you just throw? So I think I started answering some of these questions with, you know, two very important male allies, you know, David Shapira, Jim Withers, and many more. I think microaggressions is a whole separate webinar and meeting that we can, you know, talk for hours about. And we are, you know, in the screen that I see right now, we're all women. It's how do I deal with it? So it's something that has, you know, in the beginning been difficult, but I think the last administration has given me the language to understand what is happening. Whereas before, you know, I thought that was part of life and that's just how it is. And the language and, you know, the knowledge of that and knowing what is happening to me that I couldn't define before has allowed me to, you know, face it head on. And so, you know, I've been also involved in this organization called Vital Voices. And one of the things that, you know, that has been very important in these last few years was, you know, when I was beginning my career, I would hide the femaleness of myself, you know, try to act more like a man, try to, you know, in meetings, you know, be, you know, wear pantsuits or just emulate and be more like everyone else in the room, which were mostly men. And, you know, in these last few years, you know, have only begun to really embrace the difference that women provide and the value of that difference. And it's actually that difference that will make a difference. And so completely switch from that into just using my voice as it is in the most authentic way possible and not having fear about doing that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my heroes are all women. So I already walk into the room thinking we own it and we should, but for me, it's more like meanness. Like I don't do well, like, you know, I'll cry. I'm not quick to respond. But I will come back and then when I'm ready. And it's okay that you don't have the answer immediately. I'm not good at confrontation. It doesn't mean you have to be ready to address it when it happens, but I reflect and then I schedule a meeting. And then it's okay if it's a couple of days later. But I think it's important to document it, to call it out. And it can be done, it doesn't have to be in a mean way. Again, it takes me a few days. I'm not good on the spot, but I do come back and address it after.
Thank you both for sharing your insights. We have another audience member, Tom. He wants to know, what have been some of your highs and possibly lows living as immigrants in Pittsburgh relative to some of the places you've lived, such as New York? And what are we doing well here in Pittsburgh, and what can we be doing better for our immigrant communities?
You want me to go first? So, we certainly are not as diverse as New York and other cities I've lived. Here, when I hear someone speaking a different language, I'm just so excited because I don't think we hear enough, unfortunately. And, I think Pittsburgh is an amazing city. I have mostly felt at home, and I love living here. And the minority is not reflective of our city. I've certainly had my share of negative experiences, but it is not reflective on the city. These are individuals that I know were taught to believe these things against me or against immigrants. I try to hold empathy and realize that they weren't born this way, that someone taught them. And I hope that we can help break those cycles so that they don't pass that on to their children or grandchildren. So I think Pittsburgh is an amazing city. I love living in Pittsburgh. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. But there's always work to be done here as well as everywhere else.
So I echo what Giselle's saying. It's, Pittsburgh has been nothing but, welcoming to me, to our ideas. Obviously, I always say as well, which is what she said as well, is if this has started somewhere else, it wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have had the life that it did in the beginning. But also on the other side, I mean, there is the truth of being, such a small minority. And, living here is certainly different than living in New York City. I do feel, my minority here, much more than, any other place that I've lived in, to the point that and hope and so much hope that this would change is, I do think twice before getting out of the city. I remember I bought something online. I had to buy my 8-year-old used snowboard, and it was somewhere far in the suburbs. And, it was nighttime, and I did have to ask someone to come with me because I didn't know what to expect. And it was during this era of so much hate. And most especially now, we're going through this all over again. So there is that fear, and I wish the fear wasn't there. And I'm hoping, that things will get better. And it's, so it's a dichotomy of feelings of feeling at home, and then also wishing that, there is not at the back of my mind a fear of being alone with my 3 kids at night driving to somewhere.
Thank you both for sharing those experiences. And kind of going off of that question, we have a question from Lydia asking, the leadership value of empathy really shines through as the root of the amazing work that you do. Do you think that empathy can be taught and become part of one's leadership development?
It should be part of a curriculum from kindergarten and up. It's really something that if you're lucky to have a teacher that teaches you, you get to learn more, or parents that have welcomed that idea in your home, but it really truly should be part of a curriculum. I think it's something that you should lead with, and it doesn't matter what career path you've chosen. If you're leading with that, it's really going to have a better outcome. So I think it should be part of curriculum and training and special classes and all of it. Thanks, Lydia.
I agree. I mean, I think, when we talk about leadership, there was a time when, empathy seemed, was pejorative, right? And it's, you have to be firm, you have to be this and that, but empathy is not pejorative. It is something that actually helps you understand the situation better, helps you understand who you're serving better, for you to not assume, someone's experience, right? So it's empathy is, I think we're coming to times, hopefully, where it is something that is actually taught, as Giselle said, or expected even. So I think we are moving forward in that, especially as women, more women take more leadership positions.
Great. So our next question is kind of moving us back to the issues of food security and food waste. So regarding the supply chain around food systems, Joy asks, are there particular issues that you feel will continue to challenge us as a region, or further gaps that need to be addressed?
I mean, okay, so this is an important question. So the root of food insecurity is really inequity, right? So, and I always use this analogy of, seeing people drowning downstream in a river and saving them and helping them out, but also understanding why people are going downstream in the river and trying to solve that at the same time. So it's, we can look at food insecurity as one singular problem and solve it as a logistics issue and supply chain problem, which is what Food Rescue Hero is and 412 Food Rescue is all about. But there's so much generational work to be done to solve why food insecurity actually exists in the first place. And that takes, every problem takes all of us, but this one is something that, will unfortunately take generations. And so we have to take action solving both at the same time.
And it also speaks to policy failure. If we had legislative policy in place that would prevent that, as you see in some other countries and other cities in this country, we don't want to exist, right? We exist because there is an issue we need to solve, and it's a failure in policy.
I think that's such an important point, and one, I mean, GSPIA is a policy school. Many of our students are interested in pursuing jobs, potentially as legislators or at the federal, state level, or somewhere in government work. And so maybe you could talk just a little bit about how you've been able to partner effectively with the government, if you've been able to partner effectively with the government, and where are some of those challenges in that cross-sectoral work, and especially in encouraging the types of policy changes that we need to see. Because I think you're absolutely right, Giselle. I mean, nonprofits can certainly support the needs of the community, but they can't solve these systemic issues without policymakers working together with them.
And it's, you have to have buy-in. We have some Republican support in regards to food waste bills, but not enough at this time. I'm hopeful that we can get there, but we can think we have all the solutions in the world and we can show that we do, but we still need people who are going to vote on them. And that's the challenge. It's getting policymakers who support this work, who see the long-term effects, who want to right some of the wrongs that have been created for decades.
Yeah, and there's, what's encouraging is there's policy precedents internationally, between Italy and France in terms of how they, ban food waste. And then even domestically, states have taken the lead. California, of course, Massachusetts have completely progressive food waste laws that prevent the issue that we're having, this disconnect that we're having. And, they are going to ensure that more food surplus is redirected from landfills. So there are precedents, and I'm hoping that, as we, in this new administration move forward, that, that federally, that, there'll be we'll be more like Italy and France.
Thank you. Our next question in the chat is, do you want to expand into other areas of social justice, and what else are you passionate about?
I think I'm all over the place now. It's the ADHD. Through For Good, we do a lot of that work. Whether that's uplifting women, whether that's health care access, and any number of things. I think for me, I'm responding to a lot of need. You want to solve the problems that exist, but there's also immediate need as it surfaces, right? When we launched Hello Hijab, that was the height of the Muslim ban. We had a loved hijabi woman locally who had her hijab pulled and attacked on a street, and you feel helpless. And you cry for a few days and then you figure out what to do. And Hello Hijab was a direct response to that. We were responding to this current need. And while we were a tiny nonprofit in Pennsylvania, we had the giants of like Mattel having to say, why haven't you ever seeked out representation? We have millions of Muslims in this world. Why have you never put out a doll, a Barbie who represents them? And then we get into conversations about representation and the importance of that. And if we don't see ourselves in these places, we'll never believe we belong in them. So I think I'm all over the place now with that work. I hope to get to a place where we're not responding to crisis, that we're actually trying to solve larger systemic issues. But right now, I think we're doing both.
Yeah, so currently our focus is really to, we're just starting. We are expanding to, our goal is 100 cities by 2030, which is tracking with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is 50% reduction in food waste by 2030, which is for GSPIA students, that's SDG 12.3. So I am, and allowing and bringing this to other cities globally has been, the mission, and contributing, again, positively to that goal. If there was one other issue that I am extremely passionate about, it's climate. And it's such a big issue that it's also kind of like food waste, where it's easy to go to the point of despair. Because how do you even tackle this? What is even my role? Can I even make a difference? And I think what Food Rescue has shown me is that, yes, you can. You could take 20 minutes of your time, you rescue this food, and that even that has positive impact on climate change. And so I think if we look at the next generations, I see my children and their children, and if there's one thing that we know will affect the world and will affect the world with such major inequity, it is climate change. And, but let's, it's one thing at a time. And, I'm not sure, what that means personally, but that's the other issue that I'm completely passionate about.
Yeah, and to echo Leia, it's easy to feel helpless when these issues are so much bigger than all of us. But there's this quote that I love, and I really draw from it in moments where you feel kind of hopeless. And it's that everything matters, everything. Everything helps or hurts, everything gives or takes away from someone else. And in those days where you feel like you can't do much, I have to cling to that and believe that, because it truly does. This was an idea that came up over playing Barbie dolls with our kids. These things all make a difference. So don't ever think that you really truly can't, because it does.
Thank you, Giselle, for sharing that quote. I actually kind of want to get a copy of it and put it right in front of my desk here. So this question is actually for you, Giselle. Karen in the audience says, I grew up in Braddock and still love my hometown dearly. Going to school, we weren't encouraged to dream beyond our existence. Giselle, what do you say to women in Braddock and beyond how to go for their dream? Where can they start? And she also then later on asks about mentorship to aspire women who feel like they don't have what it takes.
Hi, Miss Karen. It's nice to have you here. For me, it's been a challenge because, like I said, I lived in survival mode for so long. And I think many people who grew up in similar circumstances are in survival mode too. We're trying to figure out, what are we going to eat tonight? where are we going to sleep? And that kind of takes a back seat to being able to dream really, really big. So I'm much better at preaching and not practicing. So I have to work on that too. But my mom never told me there was something I couldn't do, right? She said, you can do anything. And I believed her. And we have to believe ourselves when we say that, because we can. So I really try to echo that message, not only with my kids, but with all the kids that I work with every day and with the families that I do. And that reminder that you can start over at any time. If you haven't figured out what that dream is and you're 50, 60, that's okay. You have tomorrow. And tomorrow you can get up and you can figure out what that dream is.
Thank you, Giselle. This next question is directed towards Leia. Can you explain what you mean by food waste bills, and what are some other policies that you think would help us?
Yeah, so food waste bans exist in Italy and France. So if you can read about these bills if you just Google food waste Italy, and and California has it, Massachusetts has it, Seattle has it, Portland has it. So it comes at all different levels of legislature, and it's also very varied in its in how it's implemented. So there's incentives such as tax incentives for businesses that redirect food waste, and that's a positive thing. But there's also some punitive ones that prevent food waste, such as if you generate this much tons of food waste in a certain period of time, and if you don't redirect it, then there are fines. So that's how policy is, right? So it can take two forms. And these countries and these states and these cities have all different levels of it. And it's very interesting to study. So one of the things that is the easiest, of course, are incentives, and those tax incentives are actually available to everyone, which businesses don't know. And that's what we try to educate every business that we work with on, is that if you actually donate this food, you will get 1.5 times what you would get versus claiming it as a loss. So those are exciting in terms of selling, the idea to businesses. And the more, these policies come into place, the more businesses will willingly redirect their food surplus. But also there's confusion on our end that happens because there's lack of regulation. So one of the biggest causes of food waste is date labeling. And that is a big part of the bill that Giselle alluded to earlier. And a lot of people don't know that all of the dates that we see in packaging are not regulated at all. There's only one food where that is regulated, and that is infant formula. And not because infant formula goes bad, but the nutrition degrades through time. So when we look at a package and we see sell by, that's not an indicator that the food is bad, or best if used by, or expiration. So what happens is consumers don't buy this food at whatever date is stamped. So the grocer, will just end up not being able to sell it. So there's, those two things that are the major aspects of food waste legislation currently.
And I know I speak for both of us when I say that we both eat expired food all the time. It doesn't, it's not really a thing mostly.
Thank you, Leia, for providing some clarification on the policies. Our next question is from an audience member regarding collaboration. So how do you work out all the struggles of collaboration? Our students often dread group projects, and it always feels like one person is doing all the work. How do you achieve the balance?
I think having no ego is like the way to go. I mean, some days someone will do more, but ultimately there's a bigger goal, right? Like, what problem are you looking to solve? It's not about who gets the credit. It's about the work being done. I think that's one for me. I
think it's also, forming collaborative teams where you understand, what types of strengths each person has, and making sure that, that you respond to those. I always ask my team, when I hire them, what gets you going? What do you love doing? And I try to pair what their personal passion is in terms of work with the work that they're doing. And then, we also have to face that there's types of work we don't like doing, right? So, and I also ask that question, like in your daily life, which part of your work do you hate? It's like, you have to still do it. And so, and so when we plan paths in terms of career, in terms of, work together, it's really understanding everyone's strengths and weaknesses and likes and dislikes, and making sure that, you're responding to that at that personal level.
I have to say to the students in the audience that I think Leia and Giselle are just a great example of why group work can be successful and is an important skill for you to develop. So those of you who dread them, I will still continue to require you to do them. And I'm sure my faculty colleagues will as well. And I think Leah and Giselle really show an example of why, why we do have power in numbers and the types of success that collaborations can achieve.
Our next question is regarding leadership. And I believe that this is one of our final questions, and it's coming from Dr. Kevin Kearns. What have you learned about yourself as a leader, and do you do anything special to continue to grow and learn in your leadership journey?
So, I mean, for me, again, I still have discomfort in using that word in, self-reference. One of the things that I have learned is really, it's not about me, it's about my team. My team is, especially during this pandemic where everyone has had to work remotely, but also, respond to this extremely heightened need. I've documented all of our meetings, starting in March of last year, and I look back at it, and it's my job is really to take care of them. And that's my job. It's to take care of my team, who actually are the talent behind our work. And they're also strong. And it's I can't say enough that what has grown, the way I've grown as a leader mostly is in that understanding that I can't do all the work. And it's really not about me doing the work. It's about me taking care of my people, who are the ones that are the superheroes.
For me, I'd say I approach it like parenting. It's like, how do you love this person unconditionally, provide all the support you can to help them grow, and then watch them flourish. So I don't see it as like, this is my leadership hat, this is my parent hat. It's how I try to live my life. And, when I'm around people and in meetings and conversations, I try to pour a lot of love into these folks and watch them grow. There's nothing like growth when you just love and support someone unconditionally. That's when you see them be their highest and greatest self. So I think it becomes easy when you just pour a lot into them.
Thank you both. I think we've exhausted our audience Q&A. So maybe just as a final question, I'll ask, we do have a lot of students in the audience, I'm sure both GSPIA graduate students and also undergrads. And so what advice would you offer to young people who are just getting started?
You want to go first? No, I don't know.
It's fine.
I try to think of what I needed to hear, when I was in that seat. Let me think about this for a bit. I think be kind. The world needs everything. The world needs more attorneys. It needs more architects. It needs more all these things. But it really needs people that are going to walk away from your conversation feeling like you made them a better person, and they're a better person for having interacted with you. So really carry that into whatever field you take. It's not a competition. There's room for everyone to shine. There's room for everyone to grow. And your success is going to be dependent on the success of those around you. You know, your success will be defined by the success of your classmates and your family and those you love and those around you. So to keep that in mind, it's not, your growth shouldn't hinder someone else's. You both can grow together.
Yeah, this whole question always stops me, and I try to think about myself, you know, where your students may be. And I think one of the biggest, my career has taken such weird turns, and it's, I think, you know, I think one of the things I will tell myself is, you know, you are where you are right now. This is what you want right now. You know, go for it, do your best. And it will, and don't be impatient into thinking that, you know, there is this one path and I'm going to follow this path. And if I veer from this path, I'm failing. And that would be my best advice, because you don't know. And the best thing you can do is do your best at that moment where you are. And, you know, the path will reveal itself. And sounds kind of sagey. I know it might be hard to understand. It's the kind of, you know, but it's really what it is. And I would never have thought, you know, when I was in public policy school, there was probably only one thing that I knew for sure. One thing that I knew for sure at that time was I knew technology was going to make such a big difference in our lives. And this was when I graduated from 2003. I think. And so, but we didn't know yet, you know, and it's not a special thing. It's not an app. It's just going to permeate our lives in the same way that, you know, the electric light permeates our lives, not in special circumstances. It's just going to be there. And so I wanted to make sure that I understood it and that I can harness technology so that it does something good. And there's so much policy, you know, discussions right now around technology. You know, we talk about AI and we talk about how it's inherently, you know, biased. And that's a really dangerous thing, you know, and then we talk about, you know, how technology is, you know, when people approach me in social services, can we create an app? Why are you creating an app? Try to figure out what you really need. So technology policy is an important thing. You know, we can't regulate technology companies right now because, you know, our technology regulation hasn't reached SEC regulation levels. There's no antitrust. You know, we can't understand what these big companies can do. There's no instruments for regulation for these companies. So a lot of that is interesting to me. And so there might be something in you as students that are forming as a passion, but the expression of that passion may not be what you know of right now yet. And be patient with yourself because it will reveal itself.
I think that's really great advice. And thank you, both of you, so much for offering your time and your expertise and, you know, everything that you've shared with us here today, but also thank you so much for your work in our community. You both, as I said earlier, make our community a better place to live, and we're all so grateful. So I think with that, we will close. Thank you, audience, for joining us. This has been a really wonderful way to spend a blustery morning here in Pittsburgh. So grateful to all of you for your attention. If you're interested in learning more about the other Exemplary Leader Award recipients, on the Johnson Institute's website, we have case studies that our students have drafted along with faculty and staff of the previous award recipients. They're all available for download for free on our website. Leah and Giselle, we will be talking to you about drafting a case study on your incredible work and leadership. And so, you know, please stay tuned and check back for that in the future. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.